The Supreme Court dismissed a petition by one particular individual who was asking that the presidential election should be postponed in so many words. And now that the path seems a little clearer towards the election, we have with us this evening Professor Charitha Herath, Member of Parliament representing the Freedom People's Congress. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
Good to have you on the show again.
Thank you for having me, Naresh.
And so, what's your impression on the verdict? Was it to be expected, the dismissal?
Well, yeah, we have expected the same verdict. Actually, it was a very unfortunate move by whoever this individual that proposed this or submitted this case. I think people in this country politically are waiting for an election. So the legal and technical matters are secondary, but the first thing in the democracy is that the people's expectation, aspiration. Now people are willing to participate and to share their positions in governing. So we, the politicians, should understand that that is the public feeling. So we have to cater that according to the constitutions. Now a good constitutional avenue has opened that the end of this week, I think the election commission should get the complete control and authority to declare the dates and the format. So when we are having that one, and when we came into the end of this whole thing, if somebody or some party or some leader push anybody to go to court and to get a kind of stay order kind of things for this process, then it would be an issue for the people's aspiration. So I think what has happened in this verdict was that the peoples were happy and are happy that they are going to get an opportunity to share their position, their thinking through a ballot, which will come within next 3 months. I think this is a very good move, and we welcome the verdict, and we are getting ready to go further.
Actually, the people, the voters, have undergone immense hardships in the past 2 years, but they've been very patient. It's been very peaceful with the expectation that an election is coming. So isn't it rather dangerous for various parties and politicians to play around with the people's expectations? Because if an election does not happen, goodness knows where we will all end up.
Yeah, that's what I said, Naresh. That is my feeling as well. So if we are not supposed to block the people's expectation in a democratic system, I am not suggesting that you have to have elections every month, every year. But once it comes according to the constitution, then we need to give the opportunity to go ahead. We are not supposed to block it. That is what now was tried, but it was now failed. And if you look at the world now, this hardship of the people are coming up in many different ways in different countries. I have watched the situation in Kenya last week, and there was a tax law presented to the parliament, and the parliament has approved it, and the people came to streets, and they were that tax proposal was sent to the country from the IMF end, as we are experiencing. So but the people of our country are waiting, and they are patiently engaging with the day-to-day affairs, and I think they wanted to show their positions in the elections. So we are not supposed to play, as you correctly said, Naresh, we are not supposed to play with the people's expectation. Then it will be a huge disaster coming in. So we don't need to invite such a things, I think we need to go to, I mean, this is democracy means that, the end of the day, the ownership of this country is with the people of this country.
That's right.
So sovereignty is with the people, not with the parliament, not with the cabinet, nor with any other family. So we need to give that space back to people to decide. I mean, it is like, ownership, the shareholder of the company. Now, suppose you are working for a company owns by group of shareholders. So then they have to decide time to time that what is the direction that that company is going to go. The same way in a country. So the stakeholdership or the kind of ownership of this whole thing is the people. So then we have to give them chance to decide which leadership and which program and which line that the country should take up in next 5 years.
Absolutely. And in fact, we already have two major elections which have been postponed. That's the provincial council election and the local government elections.
That is also true, yeah.
So it's not a good thing at all for any politician to try to postpone this one, even if it is just for 1 year. 1 year can be a very long time when people are undergoing hardship. Professor, you mentioned the Elections Commission, and it is on the 17th of July, which is just a week away, that the Elections Commission will get the powers. Could you explain a little bit about that process?
I mean, according to the Constitution and according to the Act of selecting a president, they are getting the power, and then they will, I think they will call for a meeting of the secretaries of the parties maybe before 17th, and then they might have their program explained, and then they will prepare the calendar with the other related agencies like government printing department and police departments, and all these departments should be come together. And important thing of election time is that the country's governing system is going under election commission, though they are not governing the country. I mean, all the other government main officers should deal with the election commissions when the election is declared. So, I mean, I was a secretary of the ministry one time, then we all had to deal with them, like, we were supposed to get the direction from election commissions in some sections, some areas. So, I think now country is going to get into that situation after 17th, and I invite and I would rather request all the government officers to adhere and obey that particular piece of legislation which gives them a kind of direction that they have to work with the election commission.
Absolutely.
Even if they are implementing some development activities. Now the incumbent president is going to contest. So if it is so, then he is the leader of the executive. So he is the executive president even when he is contesting. So he might give different kind of directions in terms of development activities. But we need to carry on ongoing development activities, but not giving special room for existing incumbent president to get some favorism kind of things. So we have to be very careful on that thing, and all the government officers, I think we have very trained, very senior group of people in our public administration system, and they will follow it.
And I believe the media and social media have a big part to play in that, because in elections, say 10 or 15 years ago, government officials might have been tempted to break a few rules here and there in support of a particular party, but no longer can they do that in secret. Everything gets uploaded onto the internet immediately. So it's best for everyone if the government officials do toe the line according to the Elections Act. Professor, now we mentioned your party, the Freedom People's Congress, which is a relatively new group. What decision have you taken, you and your colleagues, on your particular line? Who will you be supporting with the presidential election?
Well, Niresh, as you said, we are not a party, we are a group, breakaway group from a previous government, and we have formed this group under name of People's Freedom Congress. And a couple of members of our group has already gone to SJB Alliance, and they are working with them, and we are having discussions. We are discussing with SJB as well. So actually we have started to form a opposition grade coalition, and we have instrumented this thing, and we have had some discussions with almost all the main opposition parties, not with the government. So now we think that we need to form alliance with main oppositions, and we are working on that, and we will let the people of this country know very soon when we are going to sign the alliance agreements and when we are going to start our work.
Right, because there's actually not a lot of time left, because within about 3 months.
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, we are working with the main oppositions, but we are not coming out as an alliance or as a partners of the SJB at the moment, and we will work that whole deal, and we will come to the front and to declare it very soon.
Now, Professor, after the presidential election, the expectation is that there will be a general election called quite quickly if Mr. Premadasa wins or Mr. Anurakumara Disanayake wins. So we could have a general election as early as January. In such a situation, there is the possibility of a hung parliament. Of course, one party may get the majority, but there could be a hung parliament as well, which is again new territory for Sri Lanka, isn't it?
Well, no, I don't buy that argument, that theory, Niresh. Now, in the presidential election in this country, I think the two main parties, two main players would get the major component of the vote shares, not a third candidate. Now people are saying that the third will get a 3 million, 4 million kind of. I don't think so. I think the third will get less than 1.5 million. I mean, this is what I feel. I mean, somebody can write down this and ask me one day, but what I feel is like end of the process, in the last week of the presidential election process, the third ones will be marginalizing and reducing his votes, and the votes will come to either first or second. That is what has happened. Up to now, our history shows that less than 500,000 was with the third runner. But in this time, there are some differences. I think 1.5 million would be there. Whoever the third, I don't know who will be the, but whoever the third. So then there might not be having 3, 4, 5 millions in third. No, that is not happen at all in this country. Then the second question, Niresh, that hung parliament, whether there will be an hung parliament. I don't think so as well, because after presidential election, the country knows that who got the executive power of this country. So then the people, larger portion of electorates will be going into that person, that president. So I think he will comfortably getting the majority
in parliament.
Yeah.
Right. So some interesting election results from overseas in the last few days. First we had the UK general election, which was a snap election called by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, and it backfired completely, and his party has been swept out of office, and the Labour Party has formed the new government. So it shows that Mr. Sunak has actually miscalculated in a big way as to the mood of the British voters. Do you feel that in Sri Lanka also there could be such miscalculations?
Well, actually, either miscalculation or not, the government has to go for the election in this country. That is one thing. Another thing, Niresh, is that we have to look at this UK election very carefully, very closely. In my opinion, actually we have to have something to learn from this election. People were raising many different issues. I mean, you can see that the immigration issue was one, and there is a huge issue in economic front, and that Tory government was not good in economy. You know that 3 or 4 prime ministers were changing due to that issue, and then this social democratic economic setup of that country was collapsed. Now, one important example is NHS issue. Now, if somebody give the rates or the first rate of this election of the immigration issue, I think the second one will be the NHS issue.
The National Health Service
issue. Now, it was completely in a kind of disaster kind of arrangements, and we have seen in the debates that how they have been dealing with this issue. I think that is social democratic related issue in that economy. Then the transportation, public transportation issue, like in England, public transportation is a kind of must at the moment. I mean, you can't have, everybody is not going with their own vehicles like in USA, and public transportation is a kind of rich system that they had, but that was in a kind of questions. So we have to look at these two issues, NHS and public transportation, and to look at in our social democratic welfare systems, which we have initiated from 1948, even before that. Education, health, these two things are important matters in coming elections, and I invite all the main front runners or main parties to take this issue now. For example, health issue, now we are only looking at previous health minister who is in custody, and some of the bad or kind of conduct of purchasing drugs. That is one issue which we need to look at. But the issue as a whole is that whether our hospital service is in a accepted level, whether the rural people could get the benefit of this thing. I mean, you have to look at this issue as a kind of main issue of these elections. Then the social security factor, in our country 40% of the population are below the poverty line, and there are many difficulties that they are facing right now due to this economic hardships. So we need to look at what is the kind of appropriate social security process or program that should be implemented. Like in history we have seen many different kind of Janasavya, Samurdhi, Asvasuma, many different kind. We need to go for one kind of. So even the other one is the disparity and mismatch of distribution of wealth of this country. That is also a big issue. I mean, you can't just argue. You can't. I mean, that's a very interesting thing. This liberal democratic economics and politicians are looking at just numbers without people. You have to, in politics, numbers are matters with people, not just numbers. You can't just come and say that the growth is this much. Then the very limited group of people could make that growth, but the distribution is completely less. So you have to look at numbers with people. That is the way of looking at politics from social democratic point of view. People in liberal and so-called mainstream economics and the economists who are advising this present incumbent government are only looking at the numbers without people. So you are not supposed to govern a country just to look at the numbers. Then the laptop computer could do your executive presidency job. It is not. That is why we need to have a person in the seat with the understanding of the issues of the people and the numbers, not just the numbers leaving the people, as some of the mainstream guys are doing right now.
Well, the problem with focusing on numbers is one tends to focus on a few numbers, a few statistics, and sort of forget the rest. And I believe what you said, 40% or 35% of our population is below the poverty line.
Yes.
So even with Aswasuma or whatever you want to call the safety net, it's not enough for those people. And basically they need not just handouts but jobs. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that I agree. And also creation of job is a one main thing. Creation of job for some people is the kind of mentality of this, growth govern thinking of economy. So we need to look at how the wealth will be distributed and how opportunities are distributed among people, and then they could be able to engage in the market getting their jobs. So we need to look at this as a whole frame, not as a one single thing, So I mean, I would like you to look at the state election results of Karnataka last year, and Karnataka as a province, as a state, was doing good, and their growth rate was very attractive, but the distribution among the people of that state was not that much good. Then the people were very angry with the existing government at that time, and they have completely given to a different group of people. So that is the same thing that you have to look at even in Sri Lankan situation. And I even think like main opponent of this government, SJB and NPP, should learn some lessons from UK elections. And if they just leave it, then there will be an issue for them. I think you have to look at the growth, agree. You have to look at the wealth creation, agree. But you have to look at how wealth will be distributions, how opportunity will be distributions, how social democratic setup, like social welfare setup, is protected, how a social security network should be implemented. These things are main issues that were discussed at the UK elections.
Food for thought indeed. And on that note, let's go to a short commercial break and we'll be right back.
We live in a world of progress. But what if progress isn't reaching everyone? Millions of Sri Lankans struggle without access to clean water, safe roads and bridges to a better life. But you have reached out. You have touched their lives. Thank you, Sri Lanka, for making Gammadda the most impactful rural development movement in our nation. Gammadda, for the people, by the people.
පුත්තලම් දිස්ත්‍රික්කේ නවගත්තේගම මහාවිද්‍යාලයට රෝහලට සහ ගම්මානයටම ගම්මැද්දෙන් ජල පෙරණ පද්ධතියකට මුල්ගල තැබූ වගයි. ගම්මැද්ද රට නගන ජල පවුර.
Welcome back to Face to Face. We are with Professor Charitha Herath, Member of Parliament. Professor, we are now getting into what you might call election fever, isn't it? Now the expectations are there. The Election Commission, which was silent for, oh goodness knows, so many years perhaps, has now started issuing public notices and creating a little bit of awareness. So it's an exciting time, isn't it?
Yes, yes, and I think I mean our election commission have shown last couple of elections that they are completely managing the situation, which we have to admire. We have to say thanks to them. Even when the country accepted the identity card for the elections, which was kind of good move, and like all this internal wrongdoing were minimizing, which was very good. But still state power was being wrongly used by incumbent governments and presidents. So that might happen this time as well, that the state dinners, state lunches, and presidents invited different kind of meetings at temple trees and things like that, and Kandy Presidential House, and even in Aurelia. All these things might happen again and again. I think we are not supposed to only look at the election day activities. I rather would like to request all the election monitoring missions and monitoring institutions to look at even pre-election time period very carefully, because election day might be all right, not a big issue would happen, but in pre-election arrangements could be sometime hijacked by state power. So that should be looked at, and I am thinking that this is a kind of festival of democracy. The election is a thing which you have to take very positively, and I rather would like to invite all the people to play a very proactive role, not just to wait and see kind of policy. You can participate to discussions, and you can listen the debates, and you can engage with candidates and their representatives, and you can read the materials that they are going to distribute, manifestos and some other documentations. But still you have to have a kind of a clear position in this election. This is a time that we have to be very clear in our thinking that to whom that we are going to vote. We have been voting many different, based on many different reasons in previously, but this is the time that we all should agree that this is a very important time. Now the company is searching a new group of directors or new chairman. So you have, if you are interested in this company, this country, if you are going to live in this country, you have to be very clear on your mind that to whom that you are going to vote. I think even in general election you can vote many different people, but in presidential election you have to only select one person. I think a program and a personality are the main kind of thing that people would get to consideration. And I request the media to play a very balanced, very proactive role, and the people of this country.
A festival of democracy is how you put it, and that's a very good description. Professor, judging by the mood of the public, and you do get around the country a bit, are we likely to see a high voter turnout, higher than usual?
Well, I think in this country people are participating to elections, though they are now saying that, oh, we don't like to vote anybody, we reject everybody. All these things are, moving here and there. But in the election day, they will come and vote. That is something like, people of this country are not going to temples the Buddhists are not going to temples in every month, but they will go to temples on Vesak days. Christians are going to church on Christmas days. Likewise, all the people of this country will definitely go to vote. So nearly now in this time, 17 million registered voters. Out of that, I think 14 million, 13.8 kind of people would definitely vote. And that is good part of our democracy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Professor, now you mentioned the UK election and the various issues which actually decided that election. What are the major issues in Sri Lanka? I mean, broadly we know the cost of living and the lack of jobs and so on. But if you were to list out, say, the top 5 major issues that people would consider when they go to vote, what would they be?
Yeah, I think as many people would agree with me, the first and foremost one is the economy. How we could rebuild this economy and what has happened and who created this whole crisis and how to get out from that. That is one thing that each party should offer. And in my reading, the current understanding on the issue is not correct. The government is saying that, you know, somebody has created this economic issue and this government came and they have settled it or they have put into a right path, which is completely not true, because this was a, you know, I mean, kind of consequences which was due to many wrong kind of economic decision making which was happening last 45 years. So we need to look at that one, and we need to give the correct analysis of the issue and the solution. Number one, so economy. Number two is the ways and means of how we could create wealth. Now, people are saying many different stories to how to distribute wealth. But for distributing, you have to create wealth. In this country, we almost forgotten the creation of wealth, but we are champions of talking distribution of wealth. So we need to look at how we could create. That is number two. Number three, this creation of jobs and gives open access and opportunity for people to engage the market. That is number three. Number four, we need to develop human resource sector in this country in matching with the current economic trends. So that is completely a forgotten sector where our education and the market are not matching each other completely. So that is a big issue. So you have to then have some reform program in education and in market accessibility. Then the fourth one is the restructuring the state mechanism in a way that identifying the role of the state and the market. So some people think that you can completely give up state monitoring processes and the state playing in economy. Then you have to give everything to the market or the public enterprise sector. But that is one thing you have to be very careful, and that debate should be brought up again in these elections. What is the role of state and what is the role of the market? Then you have to have some another topics which are related with state-owned enterprises. What are the enterprises that you have to keep, and what are the enterprises that you can have public-private partnership type of new restructuring plan, and what are the enterprises which you can either sell or close down. So these kind of issues are in the priority list in my thinking. I think the wealth is one thing, and the work-related thing is number two, then the welfare is number three. Yeah.
Excellent. So that certainly gave us a clear indication of what the people would be considering. So economy and wealth creation, jobs, human resources development to match the market needs, and restructuring of the government and of state-owned enterprises. That's quite a long list, isn't it?
Yeah, that is true, but you know, I mean, you can't just say that even these 5 years I can do only economy and the others will be forgotten and you have to take them after 5 years. No, that you can't do. Even you can't restructure economy without touching some of these areas. And also, Niresh, I just need to emphasize here that in this government is always saying that we have done a good debt restructuring project. That is, they are selling kind of product. We have gone to IMF and we have done this and done this. Bilateral were like managed in this way. Multilateral were continuing paying, and now bonds were restructured. Now we are the good guys. That is what they are saying. But this debt restructuring is one part of the whole issue. We need to look at that how we can restructure the economy, not just the debt. Now restructuring economy is completely menu of the IMF, and if we ask from this government that what is the ways and means that you are going to do with the economy, they will say that no, wait, you have to look at the IMF website, and I will say that is what they could say. I mean, they are just selling that debt restructuring was the product that you have created in this last 2 years, but the restructuring economy as a whole is the point which was forgotten. Then we need to address that in this election.
Absolutely. So I think yes, the macro level debt restructuring may have been a success, but to the person at home who's lost his job or whose grown-up children can't find a new job, and they are basically earning less than what they are spending on a daily basis, that all doesn't matter. The bonds and the restructuring doesn't really hit home at all, does it?
Yeah, that's true. And also, I mean, this IMF's menu is good thing in some sense, but you have to look at the bad part of it as well. So now, I mean, IMF has been giving us very different kind of opinion in different time, which are not matching with each other all the time. Now, if you remember, one time they have advised us that we have to close all the project loan giving banks, like then NDB Bank, National Development Bank, was at that time under government, and their opinion and their advice was us to sell it. Then we have done it. Then later they have come up with the idea that now the country like Sri Lanka should have development banks. So one time they have preached and they have directed us to sell the development bank which we had, and next time they came up and say that you have to now start a development bank. Likewise, they are varying of their opinions which are contradicting their own position, which they have given us as an opinion in previously. So you have to be very careful of just following IMF menu as a Dhammapada, as whatever your main book, that this government would say that this is the only thing that you have to protect, not the people, not the country, not the system, democratic kind of institutions, but the IMF menu. That is what they are saying. I think we have to question it in this election.
But also, Professor, the IMF is an organization. It's a large international organization, but its management hasn't necessarily got the experience of running a country.
Yeah, that is also one thing, but they think that in ours, like an economy, now we have badly managed it. Not only this last 2 years, 2020 to 22. Now some people are looking at the economy is completely destroyed in these 2 years. That is not true. This economy was in a bad direction from 2009 onwards. Even in 2015 to 19 government under Prime Minister Wickremesinghe at that time, has had collected many or had taken many ISBs, like 12 billion American dollars, and to add to this whole debt, kind of mountains. So now we are struggling to get away from that mountains, like, now, I mean, the leaders who are preaching that they are the solution were the part of the problem at one time. So that is what we need to be very clear. And I think in this election, presidential election, you have to get a clear-cut policy debate. And policy debate should be formed in a way that the result-oriented action type, but with the very clear analysis. And you can't just say a lot of rhetorics. Rhetorics is part of our politics. We can come and say many different beautiful adjectives, not the points. Even like, you have to be very careful in this election. What are the facts? What are the opinions? Then the rhetorics are mainly engaging with opinion part, and in some election interpretations, some leaders are giving completely a different kind of rhetorics, leaving the facts out. We have to be very careful. And I think opinion, facts and rhetorics are three different things. We have to get out from these election debates and to question each other from the leaders here.
So I think an example would be that in the last election, the SLPP had this vistas of prosperity and splendor, which sounds almost like heaven, but it lacks the nitty-gritty, the absolute facts.
Now that is also one important thing that we can learn from UK elections. Now 2 days back they have come to power, then the next day they had the cabinet meetings, and the new Prime Minister clearly demarcated that this is the book which is called Manifesto, and you have to convert this concept into action, and then there should be a time frame, and you have to deal with the civil servants of each departments, and to deliver, not preach. So in our case, what we have done was that our governments were preaching things when the election time. They are doing the same thing after they got the governments. So I think in this coming election, you can allow any political party or any leader to preach or say you many different things and present their proposals as manifestos, but the day one after they will be elected, they have to convert their manifesto into actions, and people and media have to start to monitor that, how that concept will be converted into action plan and how action will be delivered.
Now, Professor, given the pressures that the people are under, economically and financially speaking, does a new government and a new president actually have 5 years to deliver, or will they be under pressure to perform miracles within about 1 year or 1.5 years?
Well, no, like you can't do that, and the current government is also spreading the idea that nobody else could do this thing because IMF says that we are the good guys. But that is not true. IMF is a kind of external arm, and they have agreed with the country, not with this government or this leader or that leader. So you have to be very careful and clear on that. And I think the first year of next government is very, as you said, very crucial, and we need to do different kind of things together. One, you have to continue with this debt related issue, and you have to start new ways of creating wealth. You have to look at how the wealth will be distributions. You have to look at how the unemployment issue will be handled, and I mean there are same time many things need to be done. I think in that regard we need to look at the program, the leader and the team. Not just the leader. Don't look at just the leader and don't look at just the program. The program, leader and the team are main factors that we need to look at, we need to consider, we need to take into our consideration when this election debate comes.
Now, Professor, our political leaders, once they get into office, they have a habit of making excuses for non-performance. For decades, it was the war. Anything, if you ask why there are potholes on the road, they will say, well, there's a war going on, we don't have the resources. But in actual fact, that was not true. There were budgets created and passed by Parliament, and it was simply a lack of people in power not doing their duty. And that includes civil servants as well as politicians. And then, of course, now over the past 2 years, it has been a sense of, well, we are bankrupt, the economy is down, and therefore the other areas are not of priority. So we seem to make these excuses, but a new government which comes in really can't afford to make excuses, can it?
Yeah, now there is a big debate on corruption of this country. Corruption should be eradicated and completely, clean. That is number one. But this corruption factor has many links. The politicians sometimes are corrupted, and you need to select non-corrupted political leaders. All the leaders who are in jail or who are out and who are being named as corrupted politicians were selected and elected by the people. So that is one thing. Then the second link is that the state sector or the official kind of bureaucratic sector is also linked with these corruptions. So we need to look at how we could get rid of that part. Then the third is the legal instrument at the moment sometimes allows corruption to be happen. So we have to look at and fix some of these technical, instrumental, regulatory issues. And third, the monitoring and engaging from critical perspectives are also lacking. Sometimes we have elected governments and we leave it as them to go ahead, and not any over kind of looking measures will happen. And the fourth one is to have a very powerful parliament in order to oversight the executive activities. Now, when I was the chair of COPE, I have been trying to oversight the president's power, which is divided into different kind of ministries, and that was the reason that they wanted to completely cut me out, and it was happened after this president came in. But that is okay, and you need to have parliamentary committee system in order to look at to engage from a kind of regulatory point of view. So we need to have that kind of changing work done in this coming year after new president.
Changes in the governance structure.
Yes, yes.
Very good, excellent. Thank you very much, Professor Charitha Herath. I'm afraid we are out of time. It's been a very interesting conversation, and I wish we had more time, but of course the news is coming up next. So thank you very much for joining us, Professor.
Thank you, Niresh. Thank you.
Thank you to you at home for watching us. The news is coming up next. So stay tuned and have a good evening.